Hey everybody, and welcome back to the next part in my series on creating a great tone for our Line 6 Helix. One topic I've had a whole pile of requests on for a long time, and I just haven't gotten around to it, and I figured it's about time I actually get down to doing this, is about the use of harmonizers and how we can dial those in for not only a realistic sound. There's kind of two aspects to this, getting them to sound kind of real, like as if it's two guitar players playing together, but also just choosing the right notes that we want and how those controls work. So there's going to be a little bit of theory knowledge involved in getting these to sound right, as far as a little bit of technical dialing and to get them to sound good. So let's dive right over to HX Edit without further ado and just start talking about this and seeing what some of our options are in the Helix. I've just pulled up my cartographer patch that I did a dialing in video for last week. I'm just going to use that for now. It really doesn't matter. I'm not trying to create any particular sound here, more just about talking about how we can dial in the harmonizers. So what choices do we have? I have a couple blocks here. I'm using a distorted patch. Some people are going to want to put their harmonizers after their distortion, some people before. I've done a video on that in the past on effects order. So if you want to go back and check that out and some thoughts about that. But let's just take what we have here on our Helix. So if we go to a stereo harmonizer effect, we have the twin harmony, the simple pitch, and the dual pitch. We have other generators and synth type effects in the pitch whammy. That's not really the topic of this video. It's more talking about just creating harmony lines for our guitar part that we're playing. So let's start off with the simple pitch and we'll see what we have here, okay? What we have is interval, sense, delay, shift level, mix, overall level control, shift pan and dry pan, okay? And since we're dealing in stereo here, this is going to have a little bit more than if we were dealing with the mono version, which gets rid of the pan controls, obviously, right? So let's just deal with the stereo ones for now, because if we are running in stereo, that'll allow us to kind of know what's going on. If we aren't, then we'll just ignore those controls. So first things first, let's talk about intervals, okay? There's going to be two different types of harmonizers here. There's going to be the simple pitch and the dual pitch. Simple pitch is giving us one harmony line, basically, on top of our straight unaffected line that we're playing, right? So whatever notes we're playing, it's going to be just our straight unaffected signal. This is going to add one, like as if one other guitar is playing over top of it. Now the problem with this is if we go over to dual pitch, again it says interval 1, interval 2, so it gives us the ability to add two parts. So essentially a three-part harmony, right? The main melody plus two harmonies. And then the twin harmony is a much more interesting one as far as I'm concerned. It's the one I would utilize more often than the others, because it actually allows us to dial in the key we're playing in. And you'll see why when I dive into this, why that's going to be important, okay? So let's go back to our simple pitch. So this is saying interval. Well, we have to understand what this interval meaning is, because for the simple pitch and the dual pitch, it's not really interval in the music theory sense of the word, of talking about sort of major and minor intervals or perfect intervals or augmented or diminished intervals. This is more talking about semitones, okay? So if I set this 0 sense, 0 delay, we'll talk about that in a second. Shift level on 10. So that means that basically the volume level of the pitch shifted note or the harmony is going to be at its maximum, and the mix control is kind of at 50, so it's going to be the same level as our original melody note, okay? So I have this set at 0, so what's going to happen here is really nothing. It's just going to double the note. It actually, for some reason, kind of gives us a volume drop. Not sure why that time we could pump that up with the level, but that's kind of a useless effect right now. The pan controls is telling us that we could take our dry signal and pan one left and one right. Now what we could do with that is, let's talk a little bit about the delay. The delay is designed to offset the pitch shifted note by a certain number of milliseconds. If I pump that up to 50, what we should hear is in the left channel, the shifted note, even though it's the same note, will be almost slightly offset by 50 milliseconds. Gives it almost like a short delay setting. Not really the use of what we want here. For now, let's just get the shift pan and the direct melody note pan to the center. Get rid of the delay. Now, the interval, if I move that up one, what this is working is semitones. So if I'm playing the note A, let's say, when it's set to 0, I'm just getting an A. But if I move that up +1 on the interval, it's going to move up and add an A sharp to the note, or it should. Right? So that really is the interval of a minor second in music theory terms, but here it says +1. That's a little bit confusing. So on the simple pitch and dual pitch, we're dealing with semitones, okay? Or if we want to think of it in guitar terms, single individual frets. How many frets higher are we? Okay? So I could move that up too. Now if I play that same A note, I'm going to get the note B along with it, interval of a major second. Move it up again, I'm going to get an interval of a minor third. Move it up again, I'm going to get an interval of a major third. Again, perfect fourth. So we can see as we move it up one semitone at a time, if we go all the way up to 12, we're going to be in an octave, right? Because on the guitar, in music, actually, 12 semitones is an octave. Moved up 7 would be a perfect fifth. It's almost creating some power chord effect there, right? Okay, so let's say we set that to an octave lower. Now we've got kind of an octave pedal. But we can come in and offset the delay a little bit to give it a little more human quality. So both notes aren't playing perfectly in time. The sense feature is going to allow us to slightly offset the pitch so it's not so perfect, to give it more of a human quality. So I could say I'm down an octave, but I'm going to throw that off by a couple cents. The more crazy I go with that, though, it's going to give almost a chorusing effect because the note's going to be a little bit out of tune now. Now maybe we don't want that shifted note to be quite as loud. We pop that down maybe to 6. That sense control is kind of driving me nuts. The tracking on these is very nice. I mean, you can play pretty quick with it. Sometimes kind of sloppy too. And it does track nicely. So hopefully that answers some of your questions about that. Now, the other thing I can do, like I said before, is pan these out. One to have the main note and the other to have the harmonized note. And the stereo version. Okay, so what happens if we jump up to dual pitch? It's going to be the same thing, okay? It's going to have a couple extra controls. Obviously, still have the delay and the sense for interval 1 and interval 2, but we also have voice 1 level and voice 2 level. So maybe if we set up 1 to be, a fifth above with a slight delay, and then the other one to be an octave below, and put the sense back to 0 here with maybe even a different delay. But maybe we don't want that octave to be as loud. We can just pull the level down of voice 2, I find a lot of times what you're going to want to do is pull the harmonized voices down somewhat anyways, just kind of let the melody note come through. Now, again, we could pan these out and so on and so forth. Now, what is the problem with the simple and dual pitch? Well, the real issue here is that if we want to play a harmony that follows a key, that's not going to allow us to do it, okay? And let me give you an example here by going back to the simple pitch. Let's say that we go up, 3 semitones, right? Which would create an interval of a minor third. So if I'm playing on the note A, that's going to be giving me the note C on top of it, right? That's fine until, let's say we're in the key of C, right? And A is supposed to be a minor interval, but then I go to the note C, which technically in that key, if we're going to stay diatonic to the key, should be the note E. Well, it's giving me an E flat now, right? So that's all fine and dandy. But when we get there, it's going to be all minor intervals no matter what note I go to. Now that's fine for a wacky kind of outside effect like I was doing there, but it's not going to help us for something musical. So I think maybe some folks, maybe if they don't realize that this is not moving kind of diatonically and being more of what they call an intelligent pitch shifter, they could struggle to get a harmony line that moves with their melodic line, especially if it's in one key. So that's why I said I would probably, and I hope I explained that okay. If not, leave me some questions below about it and I'll try to explain it better. I'm trying to think how I just worded all that and make sure it came out right. But that's why I would probably go to something more like the twin harmony, okay? Now, something interesting is that in all these requests, the one band that kept coming up is Boston, right? I had people saying, well, our band plays More Than a Feeling. Our band plays, whatever Boston song. And I'm having a really hard time getting my harmony lines to sound right using the harmonizer, but I need it for it to kind of have an authentic effect, right? So I think maybe it could be that they're going to a simpler a dual pitch possibly, but so if we pull up something like, let's take More Than a Feeling by Boston, right? And we say, well, what if we wanted to create a harmony line for that, but we're going to use the twin harmony, which is a more of an intelligent pitch shifter? Well, we have to know, first and foremost, the key that we're in, right? So, what's that? Now, as much as we might want to sit there and think, oh, it's in the key of D because, we start on a D. The problem with the key of D is there's a C sharp note in it, and he clearly goes to like a C add 9 chord, to a G over B, to a G, right? So really when you look at these chords, that's a 1-4-5 chord progression in the key of G major, okay? So our lead lines will likely be based around a G major scale or, E minor or whatever. But let's see what our choices are here first and foremost. Go back to our distortion snapshot. So let's pick G major, okay, so I know my key is that. Now this gives us all sorts of possibilities. Minor, major pentatonic, harmonic, minor, melodic, minor, whole tone, whole diminished. Now some people that are more into playing modally might say, well, where's Dorian and where's Phrygian and all these? But really those are just extensions or, maybe an extension is not the right word, but those are just scales that come from the parent scales of either major, right, or minor. Even the minor is kind of redundant here, really, because we could always just go to the relative major, right? Major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, harmonic minor, which has modes, melodic minor, which has modes. So this kind of gives us a lot of possibilities. But for our example here of using More Than a Feeling, we're going to stick with G major. Now, if we look at one of the little common little lead lines that Schultz played in that. There's obviously a harmony part to that. And we say, well, what was the harmony? Well, the harmony is actually happening below that. Right, where it's actually a unison at the end, which might cause a bit of an issue, but I got a solution for that. So we see what's happening here. We're bending from B to C. So basically our harmony without the bend, or our melody without the bends is C, B, A, C, B, A, B, A. Okay, fine. The harmony is A, G, F sharp, A, G, F sharp, G, G. So we say, well, what is that interval, right? Well, if you look at this, you see I'm playing on a C as my melody note, but 3 semitones below that is going to be my harmony, right? So really, that's an interval of a minor third, right? So we could set this. Now, here's the interesting part about this. This is being set in actual intervals now. And let me just set these both to 0. So kind of hear the phase shifting going on of them canceling each other out. So what I could do is I could say, okay, I want an interval of a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th. So in this case, if I went an 8th below and an 8th, an 8th above, this is going to give me octaves. You see, with the simple pitch and the dual pitch, a setting on the interval of 8 was 8 semitones. So that's not going to be an octave. 12 semitones is going to be an octave. That's what gets confusing about these different harmonizers, right? So with this, it's talking about actual musical intervals. With the simple and dual pitch, it's talking about semitones or individual fret movements on the guitar. Now you might say, well, why don't they offer me major third, minor third? Because this is going to take care of it. You got to remember, this is an intelligent pitch shifter. This is going to take the key G major, and if I set this to a third below, see, this says minus third, so I'm going to get a third below, or a third is going to be a third above, but I want it below, because that's the harmony for More Than a Feeling. For this one here, I'm just going to set it to 0, but I'm also going to take the level and just get rid of it. I don't want 2 harmonies here, but you can just turn that off. I'm just bringing the level right down to nothing, okay? So we could say, I want it to be a third below. The mix at 50 is going to give me equal volume between my melody note and my harmony note, and then I could use my voice level to control it. But let's just see what we have here. If I play now with a third below it, I should get constantly either a major or a minor third depending on what I'm playing, okay? So in the key of G major, if I'm playing the note C, I should get a major third because that is diatonic to that key. If I go down to the note A, I'm going to get a minor third because that's what it is in that key, diatonic to that key, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that's clear, okay? So what we have then is if I play this with now the setting of G major, which is the scale I'm playing in, set to a third below, I should get this harmony. Remember, here was the melody again. The harmony should be. Turn it on, let's try the melody with this now. I'll stop there. That's giving me exactly what I want. Now, that's not how I would leave it though. I find that the harmony is too loud. It's distracting. And you know, it's going to almost have, to me, a slightly more artificial sound when we have it too loud. Because it's going to, you know, these are harmonizers that are digitally recreating the note for us. There might be little artifacts to it. So the lower the volume we can get with them still being prominent enough to get the harmony in there, probably the better. That's just my opinion. Again, take that for what it's worth. But if I take this and maybe lower this to, let's go down to 6 and see how that sounds. Five. Again, that's going to be your own personal preference. You can dial it in wherever you want. Let's go 6. With the stereo, what's neat is I could pan these out. Right? I could put it right up the center so it blends even more with the melody note. That's all going to be your own personal preference again, right? Okay, so we only need, if I wanted to come in here and say, what if I panned this one over to the left, let's say 60, voice 2 to the right 60, bring the voice level up to 6 for this one, and add in the third again, Maybe it, oh, I'd have to change that key to G major as well. It might fatten it up a bit. I don't know if that's something we want just to get that stereo effect. Or I could say, what happens if I go a third above? Right? Maybe just pull the volume on that one way back a little more. That might be really good as well, right? So it's really open to whatever we feel we want. I'll probably just leave that out for now, pan this to the center so it's more of a mono effect. Find that quite natural now, right? Now, here's the problem. That last note is just a unison, right? So what we could do, I could even say, let's take our mix and assign it to expression pedal 3. Now I have my Mission Engineering line 6 expression pedal set up over here. Sorry to turn on you. So what I can do now, sorry, which one is it? I got two of them here. Okay, so I could have it set so that I wanted that at 50%. So I come into my expression pedal, set my max setting to 50%, minimum to 0. Now, when my pedal is at the sort of toe position, right? And then when I get to that last note, I can just slam it down. So. Right? Another thing I could do there that would be even more interesting is say, let's set our voice shift to our expression pedal. Come over to bypass control assign and say I want my max voice to be our -3 and our minimum voice to be -8, which would be an octave, right? So now I could use my expression pedal to be on the third or drop it to an octave. So on that last note, instead of doing a unison and having the harmony drop out altogether, I could kind of hit that G note and drop that an octave so that it actually thickens that up. Let's see what that sounds like. So. That's an option too, kind of neat. With the expression pedal, there's all sorts of possibilities, right? Or we could just also assign the pitch shifter to stomp mode to one of our switches on the Helix itself and turn it off at that moment. And there's all sorts of ways to deal with this, right? Okay, so what actually happens now if we had put this before the distortion? Let's see. You see in this case here with the tone I'm using, the pitch shifter before doesn't sound good. It's interacting nicely with the distortion and giving us a much smoother effect that we would be after, right? And the nice thing about this is anything I play in the key of G major or E minor scale or whatever, you notice it's not like with the simple pitch or dual pitch where those notes were always like a minor third interval. This is constantly switching between major thirds and minor thirds, depending on the note I'm playing to match the key of G major and stay diatonic to that key, which is wonderful, right? So I can really solo with this, even improvise. Where I could get into trouble is if I get outside of the scale. If I was to go into a different key altogether and play in the key of, F, it's going to be pretty awful. because it's not really picking the right notes to match with that key. Now that could create an interesting sound that you like or not. That's not the question. It's just that that's not going to be diatonic to that key. So I hope I answered some questions there, guys. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Just as the takeaway, I think the thing we should remember is the twin harmony is more of an intelligent pitch shifter. It's going to move our intervals around based off the key that we've told us it to be in, right? I could set this to minor pentatonic and say A, right? Well, it's going to pick the appropriate note for that. If I said A major pentatonic, right? Whatever key I choose, it's going to stay faithful to that. C major pentatonic. Notice I went outside of the pentatonic, it had a bit of a wonky sound. You know, whatever we want. Harmonic minor. Right, it's going to pick the appropriate note from whatever key we've dialed in, which is really nice. So my choice most of the time is probably going to be more geared towards a twin harmony since it's intelligent and it's going to do a lot of the work for me. Simple pitch and dual pitch, going to have its purposes, I guess, maybe for some wacky effects and whatever else. Nice to have the option. So again, I hope I answered some questions. And if there are any other questions, please send me a message, leave me a comment below, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Yeah, so hopefully that'll set you guys off in the right direction to hopefully harmonize away. So really we need to know what the harmony line is, what intervals it's using, right? Like I said, we could, like I showed before, we could use our expression pedal to jump between different intervals. Maybe we have a harmony line where we need a fifth and a third. Well, we could use our expression pedal to do that. And the folks at Mission Engineering have probably what I consider the best expression pedals if you want to add more than just your sort of onboard one on the Helix already. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in. I really appreciate all the support and the kind words you guys leave for me. It really does make my day and make it worthwhile knowing that the videos are helping some folks. So please like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the videos. Really appreciate it again, guys, so much. And I'll be back again soon with a lot more content and hopefully stuff that interests you. All right, ciao for now. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care.